Man, so Eddie Von Moger, the young brother of Calvin Von Moger, who's a bodybuilder, was found deceased here in Australia on a beach. Seemed like he jumped off a cliff. Now, Eddie rose to fame last year when he beat up a car with an elderly person in it. And he has some mental issues, guys. And let me say this. I know a lot of people are trying to point the finger at Calvin for not notifying people sooner. But the same thing with Leo, guys, which we know is a suicide note with Eddie. You can't just blame people for not informing the public sooner. There's probably a reason why Calvin, and it probably was just a positive reason, he didn't want to raise a lot of suspicions, and he didn't want people to think that the worst might have already happened. So when he finally released what was going on his IG a couple of days before they found his younger brother deceased, you can't just paint this picture that, it's a cover-up of things of that nature there. Now, we know Calvin also suffered from a lot of mental health issues. There's a long list of shit that Calvin Von Moger has done that I'm not going to discuss in this video because it's not about trying to bash anybody. Same with Eddie. I'm seeing a lot of guys that did some videos that have been constantly hammering on his mental health. And, for someone that suffered from post-traumatic stress, I have demons of my own too, but I never had the mindset of suicidal ideation or wanting to take my life. For him to do what he did is fucked up. We all have to leave, this world one day. But if you know someone that's been battling with mental health, I know for me, it's talking to a psychiatrist once a month. I've been doing it for over a decade, right? You got to have some outlet. You got to have something to help ground you. Being on drugs and all that stuff to try to push those thoughts out your head only makes it worse when you come off of the shit. So you have to be able to just, when those thoughts come to your head, to just the ground and see what triggered the thoughts in the first place. That's my therapy from being in for so long for post-traumatic stress. When I have certain triggers, I have to ground myself and see what is causing that trigger so I can address the trigger. I used to turn to alcohol and cigarettes. And once that shit wore off, the thoughts were still there. So I had to address what was causing the thoughts. And a lot of times it's just stress. Hence the name post-traumatic stress. There's no cure for it. And I believe the same thing was going on with Eddie. A lot of that stuff, though, if you're on a lot of drugs, steroids, stuff, it can fuck you up. Overtraining, not sleeping. I mean, man, if you can't get your cortisol hormone under control and you can't get your stress under control, you will spiral out of control, and that could lead to death. There was a lot of things that Eddie was facing, too, that could have spurred on him committing suicide. But what I will say is, instead of us trying to paint the picture that Calvin knew he's covering up, or that they should have jumped on this sooner, to try to put blame on them for not trying to help Eddie, we shouldn't paint that picture. Instead, we should be reaching out to Calvin and trying to keep him encouraged in words, because of his past mental health issues. This could cause a relapse with him, okay? And even though he has his demons in the past, if people are trying to change, we shouldn't hinder that change. So my heart goes out to him and his family. Let's not point fingers. Eddie killed himself. He left a suicide note. There's always red flags. I done lost friends to suicide. Depression kills. There's a lot of red flags. I talk about my aunt from time to time, how I found her. It was a lot of red flags I didn't notice that, maybe if I would have caught them, my aunt would still be here instead of, being depressed and overwhelmed with a lot of shit. So my heart goes out to the family. just keep them in your thoughts and your prayers. And you know, Calvin, man, don't turn to the drugs and all that shit, man. Just try to find some positive lining in this. It may not seem like it isn't any, but there's always a positive in any negative situation, you know. So that'll be my advice. Uplift them guys, give them some encouraging words, and RIP to Eddie, man. May he find peace in the afterlife, and that's all I have. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.